Hello people, welcome back to another video. This time you join me at Buckmore Park for the Kart Race of Champions 2026, racing in heavyweights. And yeah, we jump straight into the footage here. Make one position off the rip, going straight around the outside of turn 1, and then make up another position following one of my teammates at the weekend, Mr. Dom Hughes-Clary, moving up into P4. Dom points forward and we are happy to oblige. So format for the weekend, we have a practice session, I think it was about 15 minutes. Then we have a qualifying session which set the grid for this heat. Then we had 2 randomly assigned starts, whether front or back. And then after heats, points totted up, and then that would place you in your final. Finals went from F to A, and the F to B finals grids would be set by points that you gain from heats, and then the A final would have a kart pick. Obviously, highest point scorer gets first, lowest point scorer in the A final is the last pick, and then Super Bowl qualifying. We're a couple of laps in. We've been following Dom, and kind of quickly realised that Dom was probably having issues with the handling of the car. It's a bit of a mysterious. So I was thinking I was happy to work with him, but I just felt like at the pace, and we're losing a lot of time to Johnny Brighton who's up in second now. Tried going for the move up into Garda, didn't quite work out. And I was slotting back in behind Dom, but try and show my nose to the inside going into turn 1 here, make Dom go a bit defensive, and he ends up just moving over to the racing line. Don't know if he was trying to just carry the speed through with it being a bit understeery, and it just opens up the gap going into the first hairpin, and made the move stick. And then we are now setting off after Johnny Brighton. Obviously for this heat, qualified P6, I felt like I was out of position really. I felt like I should have been fighting for the front row in all honesty, but every time I just got into a slipstream, I ended up catching the driver up ahead and ruining a lap. So I felt like I never got a representative lap time, but I knew I had the pace to be fighting at the front, so it was just a case of how quickly I could catch up to Johnny Brighton. I know Johnny's done this a few times. It's only my second time racing at Buckmore Park, so I had no issues with the fact that he might be a bit more consistent than me, but obviously I'm clearly catching up to him at this point, just keeping it tidy through the first few corners. And then we are pretty much in a slipstream now going into the second sector. We can see if we can get a decent run down the hill, keep it tight to the inside there, use some of the curb, try and abuse track limits for the left-hander before paddock. Don't really, to be fair, I actually keep them in track limits, and see if we can try and get a good run on the exit of Garda. Give us a nice run all the way up into turn 1. We're gaining on Johnny Brighton here, gaining. He doesn't even turn around to take notice of it there. He just takes his line, opens up the exit of turn 1, and we basically just do a carbon copy of what we did on Dom into the first hairpin and make up another position into heat 2. I'm going to save all the boringness and skip through about 5 laps worth of footage. Spent this trying to catch up to Cabin. Cabin is a local at the track, and I knew it was going to be a bit more difficult to close that gap up to Cabin. Gap had been going kind of between 7 tenths, and then it would drop to about 6, and then it would go back up to 8th, and eventually, I actually don't even know what happens. I think he makes a mistake, or I just had a really good lap, and I ended up closing the gap again into a slipstream. So I'm gonna let this play out. It's just me looking for basically any move on Cabin where I can. We built up about a 2-second gap to the cats behind. Johnny wasn't really catching, and then one of the other lads, Dylan, was making his way through the field. He had a decent race, and basically I felt like I could have gone for some move on Cabin, but every time I wanted to go for a move. Mainly I was looking at paddock. Anytime I was looking to set up a move to go down his inside, he would cover it, and whenever I went for a switchback, he would cover the switchback. Although I felt like sometimes he was inadvertently defending the exit of the corner when he would mess it up. So I don't know, it was a bit annoying, but more than happy to take a P2 finish from this here. Like I said, I'll let it play through, and then I will come back for Heat 2. So we are back for Heat 2 with my 14th place start. This is literally back at the grid, and we have pulled a rocket ship of a car, car 14. Been one of the quickest on the early part of the... Actually, it was the quickest all day, I'm not going to lie. Other than at the end, it probably slowed down, but it was still up there. Anyway, get a good run off the start, end up going round the outside of my other teammate for the weekend, Jordan Bolton, but he ends up just sending a move up the inside of the car at 11, ends up making me go a bit wide, dropping back down into P14, slot back in here, don't really have the chance to go all the way around the outside. He looks for a move down into paddock, bit of a send, doesn't quite work out, and then he looks at Garda too far back, and then we get back line of stern, coming back up to finish the first lap, and I was thoroughly disappointed. I was looking to try and make as many positions as I could up in the first lap, 2 at a minimum, and don't really get anyway. Shove my nose into the first corner, and in fairness, we discussed it. He said if I show my nose going into a corner, he would open up and let me go through them. Luckily, he lets me go through there, make up a position there, end up making up another position on the exit of turn 2. There was a bit of chaos, and then we slot into the slipstream behind Ronha. End up moving up behind Kart 9, knowing that they would have the inside for paddock, push them through a bit, and then make up another position from Ronha. And now we're following Kart 9. They go a bit defensive through Garda, and then we just took into the slipstream coming up through Cafe Curve, and to complete lap 2. Kart 9 ended up going to the outside, getting caught on the rear bumper of Kart 7, ends up giving me the inside. I follow Kart 7, end up bumping him a bit, with a bit of bumping going on from behind, and ends up me forcing Kart 7 a bit wide, make up another 2 places at the beginning of the lap, and now we slot in behind Kart 8, I should say. And I spent way too long stuck behind Kart 8. Going a bit defensive through paddock. I'm just hoping he's going to sit the racing line, or we can work together, but he's going defensive and slowing me down. I know I'm losing time. I get a poor run through Garda. Luckily no one's able to take advantage of that, and then we come back up the hill, and yeah, can see the driver ahead going a bit defensive for not particularly any reason. Make up a lot of time through turn 1, take the racing line. End up bumping into the back of Kart 8 a bit though. I think they just parked it on the apex a bit without meaning to. Didn't really want to make the position up with any contact, so I was just slotting back behind. But I'm still, at this point, I'm stuck in P9. I want to be up as high as I possibly can. So going down the hill, bumping in the back. He takes the racing line a bit through there. Kart ahead, Kart 6. Gets a bad run, they go defensive. I try holding it around the outside, and then I just get squeezed to the inside and then bouncing all over the curb. That just absolutely kills any momentum that I had. Allows Ronha back through. Ronha starts going very defensive into turn 1. Not entirely sure why. Ends up getting a pretty decent run anyway. I nearly get a switch back on him. Doesn't quite work out. He goes defensive. Kart 8 sends the move on Kart 6. That ends up leading to a black flag. And then they end up just letting, they nearly let Ronha just go straight in on that side. I end up pushing him through to stop him. I'm looking to get in the position back on Ronha, and then nothing actually ends up happening. Ronha keeps the position. I slot him behind. He sends the move on 8. 8 ends up getting a turn in before I even get there. So I was a bit annoyed by that, not being able to take advantage, but it's what it is. We still got quite a lot of time left in the heat to see if we can make any positions. But yeah, Ronha signals to Kart 8 to work together. I don't really want to work together, but nothing going on coming into turn 1. Get a good run through there. He asked me to slow down to work together, and I'm thinking I'll give it a lap. If we're not making any progress, then I'm not going to. But already I can see that a gap's formed between Kart 8 and Thomas Ronha, so I already know that I need to make the position. If I want to finish anywhere near the front in this heat, considering I just had a P2 in the previous day's first heat, and I want any chance of an A final, top 5 at the minimum. So we're still following Kart 8. It's a bit boring to watch, I'm not going to lie. I can't read. There's nothing happening. He's covering it off well enough where he needs to, but eventually the move happens. So he takes the racing line, thinking I'm not going to go for it, show my nose a bit, I think I put him off a tiny bit, and then just keep it tight, hold on to the momentum, and then get the run up into the first hairpin. And then, we're now up into P8, and now the challenge was to catch up to Mr. Ronha. Took a few laps. Obviously, Thomas did this last year, finished P2 in the lightweight, so I knew it was not going to be no mean feat trying to catch him. But luckily, as I'm catching Ronha, he's catching up to the 2 drivers ahead, so we're now in a position to potentially get all the way up into P5. The drivers fighting over P2 aren't that far away in the distance, but it just depends on how quickly I can make the moves. So in behind Ronha, I'm actually looking to work with Ron hard. Like, every time he turns around, I'm trying to wave to him to just go forward, because I knew that we both had the pace on the drivers ahead. But I think he is just a bit worried that he doesn't want to get overtaken by me and then maybe risk not being able to get past these two. So, completely understandable. Goes defensive through the first hairpin. I just did the racing line. Goes defensive into the second hairpin, and I'm still at this point thinking why they're doing that. He ends up inadvertently going for a moving Kart 4, allows me to almost go around his outside. He covers it well enough. And then as we come down the hill, he actually goes for a send into paddock, loses the back end, ends up cutting out his momentum side by side with Kart 4. I end up just forcing back Kart 4 to go through the corner, load him a bit, just so Ron Hart gets a back run. And then we move up the position into P7 when I was following Kart 4. I knew I was way quicker than Kart 4 than I was compared to Ron Hart. Make him go defensive and then basically do the same move I've been doing all day, the switch back on the exit of turn 1. And that is another position gained into P6. And now we need to catch up to P5. I can see we're still gaining on the drivers up ahead who are fighting P2 to P4. It's just a case of how quickly I can catch up to the driver in 5th and make the overtake. I can see that they were not really the quickest, I'm going to lie. Don't know if it was the car or what, but I could see we were gaining on the driver up ahead quite a lot per lap, and they weren't catching up to a group fighting up ahead. So I knew it was possible to get this driver either on the next lap or the lap after. I think at this point, Kart 4 and Ron Hart are fighting behind, so I knew the gap. I could pretty much take the racing line every lap here. Brake late for the first hairpin, gain quite a lot of time on the driver ahead. We're significantly catching the group up ahead now. Get a decent run through hairpin 2, going through the S's, and we're just gaining on Kart 5 up ahead now. Going down the hill, trying to abuse track limits, don't really abuse it that much, and they brake incredibly early, almost going to the back of them. They're going defensive into Garda for no particular reason, end up bouncing off the curb, and then we are literally right up in their slipstream. I knew it was a case of when I was going to make the overtake happen, but it was just making it happen because they were just sat on the defensive line. They weren't really paying attention to what was going behind. The braking, I ended up going into the back of them a few times just because they're braking so early into some of the corners. But in fairness to them, they're still holding on to it. They're not complaining. I think they probably knew that they were just putting on a defensive drive. End up getting a really good run through the second hairpin, and they just out-drive the driver coming out of the second hairpin, and then that promotes us up into P5. This is where we stay for the rest of the heat. I'm just going to let this play through. We are catching the drivers up ahead. I think I take out a second in one lap. Can't remember. It was around a second, maybe just less. But it just wasn't long enough. If I made up more positions earlier on in the race, I should have been in this fight for second, or even through it. But is what it is. Rental karting, Buckmore. If you're behind someone who knows how to defend, it's not particularly easy. So I'll let it play through. I think this is the last lap, to be honest, and then I will come back for heat 3. So now we are back for heat 3, starting first in Kart 12, and obviously goal for this one, try with the heat, starting P1, I should be in a decent position. We had Kart 12, which was from my second heat. Ross Samwell had used it, and he went from 12th to 1st in it, so I was when I saw I was getting this car, I was a bit like, I should be in a decent position to win this heat. And then I think I did the first couple of laps and slowly realised this car just isn't that quick. It was pretty decent on the racing line, but the minute you started having to go defensive, it just had. I felt like it had no bottom end whatsoever. I don't know what it was. Its top end wasn't bad. Its top end was pretty decent, to be honest, and its handling was decent. It was just, I don't know. I just felt like it had no bottom end. So yeah, this heat, I'm not going to talk through too much. I ended up starting P1, ended up dropping down to P7, and it's just, I'd just be repeating myself, to be honest. It's just a combination of just poor decision making and just no bottom end, really. What I felt was no bottom end. It might just been me, to be honest. And I'm not going to lie, I was a bit nervous going into this heat because I knew that if I held on to win this heat, I would have a first, a second, and a fifth place finish from the heats, and that would put me easily in the top 10 for the A final. So yeah, I don't know. I just felt a bit nervous going into it. I shouldn't have done really. I should have just been been happy with the fact that I was that pole and seeing what I could do from there. I think the ultimate result really probably was P3. I think Bran and Anwar just had too much pace for me this heat. And the cars that they're in aren't too bad. Kart 3, I feel like Bran outdrove the kart he's in. Kart 7 at Anwar's in pretty decent. Yeah, this year I do end up dropping down to P7. I don't know if I already said. But yeah, it ends up becoming a bit chaos. I end up dropping down to 9th, I think, at one point. End up making the places back. But it's a decent race. I actually enjoy the race. But yeah, I'm just waffling about it, to be honest. I'm not going to talk through it. I'm just going to let Heat 3 play through. And yeah, you can see basically what not to do when you start on pole. And I will come back for the final. So we are now back for the A final. We had the 17th kart pick, with being the 17th highest point scorer. We went with Kart 11. I'm just going to give you a brief summary of what happened in the Super Bowl and the race. I'm not going to talk over the full 20-minute race. And we're going with Kart 11. Picked it based on ultimates, basically. It had a decent ultimate time. It was only a few tenths off probably the top picks, to be honest, but either it was stuck in the mid pack during heats and wasn't able to sort of put a full lap together and whatever. So I felt like it was a decent pick to make. And then we went out for Super Bowl qualifying, messed up my lap coming into paddock, ended up losing about 2 or 3 tenths by getting a bad run and up having to come off the throttle, so I didn't get a track limit and a lap deleted, and put it P14, which I was happy with considering where I started. And then we pulled into the pit lane, and the marshal told me to jump out the cart, and they were changing the front tyres because they were deemed too dangerous. I had a look at them, and they were essentially just completely delaminated. There was no rubber left in them, but is what it is. Still had decent quality in the cart considering. And then we went out. I'd pretty much cold fronts for the first couple of laps, but still the pace was there in the cart. It was just a matter of seeing how far up the grid we could make it. We ended up making it up to P8. I do make a move on Johnny Brighton going into Garda for 8th, and then probably stupidly didn't defend the first hairpin. Johnny just sends it back, and then that's kind of the end of the race for me. I think, a bit naive from my own part, thinking he was probably going to work with me, not knowing. And I spoke to him after the race. He said that he knew the car didn't have any pace, so that's why he ended up going for the move. And I'm not going to blame him for that. That's just my own fault through not defending when I should have done. But something to learn from. We've only been doing this for a year and a half. It's only my second time at Buckmore, and it's only my second time at an event like this, making it to the A final. And people will just fight for the position, and they learn pretty quickly when the position is going to be limited. So other than that, what else? Ended up setting the 5th fastest lap of the race, which was pretty much a positive from obviously the kart pick that I had. So obviously the pace was there. I felt like if I'd have probably held on to 8th, I may have been fighting for a top 5, but we'll never know. Could have just been getting to 8th and just sit there for the rest of the race with nothing really happening. But like I said, we'll never know. Other than that, if anything else happened, don't think anything else happened. I think I make 2 places up just through all the people getting black flags. But I still feel like the pace was there. There's not really much else to say about it. Really enjoyed the event this weekend. Felt like I had a decent event overall, other than I think my 3rd heat where I felt like I probably underperformed quite a bit in it. I feel like my first 2 heats I probably maximised my position, other than heat 2 where I felt like I probably should have been fighting for 2nd. Heat 1 felt like I maximised it. But something to learn on. I've only been doing this for a year and a half, outdoor karting, so there's still pace to be found. I felt like I wasn't driving the quickest I could drive even this weekend. But it's something to take into next year. I've only got 4 events left this year in all in EKS. So footage, I'm not convinced when I'm going to have any more footage out, to be honest. One on law, we can't even record there. And then it's whether I can be bothered making any footage from GYG and Three Sisters, which is a double header weekend with EKS, and the final round at Kart Silverstone. We'll see. Then obviously next year, I'm not even convinced that I'm going to be doing all that much karting. I've got a wedding to save for, so a lot more money's going towards that at the minute. So I'll just let this play through. In behind the teammate here, he went for car 3, Dom. Didn't end up being that great of a pick. I got a bit lucky because I was debating kart 3 and Dom had the pick before me, and then he took it, so I went for Kart 11, and yeah, I probably got a bit lucky with that, but a little bit of rental karting for you. So yeah, I'll well, not racing BIKC. I think I've already mentioned that in a previous video. There's just no point. It's such a bad competition. I'm not even going to get into it. Yeah, I will see you on the next one. Enjoy the rest of the A final, and goodbye.